Hi, I'm Joni Patry, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Well, today I want to talk about some very serious business, and I've been seeing this coming along for a very, very long time. As a matter of fact, I pointed out a lot of these variables in my world predictions that I did last December 2023, right before the new year, when I gave my yearly predictions for the year of 2024. And now it's upon us, all that's about to transpire. So I wanted to just show you how all these charts of countries and people are connected so that we better know what's ahead and what it's all about. And astrology is a science. So you're going to see where all the planets are in particular birth charts, how they're connected. And this means that events are connected. And these are serious events, because one of the main things that I've been talking about, well, from the beginning of the year, was the fact that Mars, the planet of war and violence, was going to go retrograde at a very critical place. And when it stations, it's going to be in a particular degree that activates so many leaders in countries' charts. I think we need to take notice of this so that we're better equipped and prepared mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally. So with that, I'm going to proceed, but before I do, I want to remind everyone to sign up for my free newsletter. Go to galacticcenter.org. You will get all of my predictions delivered to your email address absolutely free. While you're there, check out my Patreon page. Become part of our spiritual community. Here I do classes 2 a week live, converse with you, and we get down to the deep matter of everything that I'm doing these videos on, much deeper. So go there, and don't forget about my galactic planner. If you want to know your own chart when everything is happening personally for you, you're going to want this, because it will even download into your calendar on your computer or phone and tell you which days are good for business, love, meetings, travel, anything you need to know. This calendar is going to base it on your chart, and you're going to be able to make plans according to your horoscope, your planets, every day. And the first month is free. Go to galacticplanner.com. Sign up for a free month. See if you like it. And don't forget, I'm starting my university semester 1 soon. So if you've always wanted to learn Vedic astrology, now is the time to sign up. Go to universityofvedicastrology.com and become my student. All right, so let's get going. What in the world am I talking about? What do we need to be preparing for in our minds and looking at these charts? The first thing I want to go over is I want to put up the chart that I use for the United States of America. It is the chart for the signing of the Declaration of Independence. Let me jump over here and put that chart up. Now, the main thing that I want you to focus in on right now is where natal Mars is in this chart. It sits at 0 degrees of Gemini. And when transits cross over this degree, things happen. So the United States is going to have a Mars return. Now that's not that much of a big deal, because that happens every 2 years. But I want you to know this one is very important. Why? Because if we have Kamala Harris running the country during this time, which she will be. She is running for Vice President of the United States. And as I told you guys before, she will be president for a very short time. Maybe that means right now, because we all know that our president isn't 100% capable of doing everything. And she is in position to help, to run the country. So that's what I meant by she would be president. Now, I mean for a short time. I do not think she's going to win this election, nor do I even think she's going to be the particular person running for this position, because other people's charts look much stronger during this time. So I'm thinking something is bound to happen around the time of the Democratic convention, because August, this month, is critical for events. Now, the end of August, transiting Mars is going to cross over the United States Mars. And let's put up Kamala Harris's chart, looking at where her ascendant and her Rahu sit. They sit at 1 degree of Gemini. So thinking about her Rahu and her ascendant sits right on the United States natal Mars. And transiting Mars is going to cross over her ascendant Rahu and the natal Mars in the United States. This could mean something to the effect of an attack. And it's not good for Kamala. She must remain in safe places during this time. Mars is violence, okay? So this is crucial. This is critical. Now, aside from that position of where her Rahu and ascendant sit and the United States natal Mars, I want to put up the chart of Xi Jinping, the leader of China. And when you look at his chart, notice where his sun sits at 0 degrees of Gemini. So there is something that he is very angry about that's going on around the end of August with Mars on his natal sun. And not to mention, he has 4 planets in Gemini. And while Mars is crossing through the sign of Gemini, through October, there's going to be a lot of upsets for what? Both the United States as well as for China, as well as for Kamala. Those are critical degrees. And even I pulled up the chart for Israel. And Israel, Uranus, let's put up the chart of Israel now. Uranus sits at 1 degree of Gemini. So this means that transiting Mars is going to hit their Uranus. Uranus is sudden, unexpected events. And I think it's so interesting that Kamala's chart is tied into all of these charts during this crises time. Now, another thing I want you to notice about the chart for Israel is notice where the natal sun sits in this chart, because that is where Uranus transiting is going back and forth. It's going back and forth over the sun. So Uranus, as I speak today, sits around 2 degrees of Taurus. And transiting Uranus is on the sun within a 3-degree range. I always give 3-degree range. So with Uranus at 2 degrees, it's going to move all the way up to 3 degrees, and it's going to go retrograde and back up over the sun again. And this all happens basically between now and the end of the year in January, back and forth Uranus on this particular point. So August is just the beginning. I'm seeing so many things come down. It is one thing after another. You're gonna even be surprised. So looking at this, their Uranus in the chart for Israel, let me remind you, sits at 1 degree of Gemini, where transiting Mars is going to cross over. But the sun that sits at 0 degrees of Taurus, has transiting Uranus. Is going to go back and forth over it. So major shifts and changes and upsets are happening in Israel, as if we didn't know. But let me just say this, there's so much more to come. And the sun in a country's chart represents the leader of the country. So with that, let's go ahead and put Benjamin Netanyahu's chart up to see if we see any connections with this. And looking at his chart, he doesn't have any connections in Gemini, but now we're going to start looking at some other placements. There's actually 3 placements that are vitally important. Right now it's Gemini, and actually, not to confuse everyone, but by the end of next February, there is another time period to watch out for the United States. And that's going to be when Mars is crucial, and it's going to go retrograde December 7th at 10 to 12 degrees of Cancer. It's going to station. So now I'm going to bring out all the charts that are aligned with that. But before I do, we're going to look at Netanyahu's chart. So here is what is important here. Let's go ahead, take all these charts down except for Netanyahu's chart, and let's put up the United States chart to see how he is tied into the US. And looking at his chart, notice where Ketu and Rahu sit at 23 degrees of Virgo. Ketu sits there in his natal chart. And of course, Rahu sits at 23 degrees of Pisces. Why is this important? Look at what sits at 24 degrees of Virgo in the United States chart. It is Saturn. And Saturn sits in the 10th house of rulership and leadership. So there is something really divisive and critical that's happening because of the United States to Benjamin Netanyahu, because his Ketu sits on Saturn in the United States chart, but Saturn from the United States chart sits on his Ketu, which tells me the United States is not going to help out Israel during this time at all. They're going to be a deterrent to them, actually. There is a big problem. So the other thing I want to point out here is I want to pull up, let's pull up the chart of, let's see, Iran. Now this is the country's chart of Iran. This is crucial for you to understand that Pluto in this particular chart sits at 24 degrees of Virgo. Now we're tying all this together. So Iran has Pluto at 24 degrees of Virgo. Look where Saturn is in the United States chart. That's 24 degrees of Virgo. And one thing I want to point out is that Pluto is major catastrophic change. Pluto, when it was discovered, actually that's when we discovered atomic energy, and it rules nuclear energy. So the fact that Pluto sits on the United States Saturn is serious. Maybe Saturn sitting on their Pluto represents that we tried to stop them from having nuclear power. But there's something to this, because right now this is being activated. And so let's pull up China's chart next to the United States. China's Ketu sits at 23 degrees of Virgo. Let me remind you, K2 represents losses, major, major losses. And Rahu, of course, Rahu and K2 are always exactly opposite, sits at 23 degrees of Pisces. So major loss to the United States. And with Saturn being in the 10th house, it could deal with the leadership at this time. So major, major loss. So let's pull up Vladimir Putin, the ruler of Russia. Notice where his natal Saturn sits, exactly on Saturn in the United States. Once again, 24 degrees of Virgo. Are you starting to see how all these countries and leaders are tied together? So something huge and catastrophic is about to occur. Yes, it is. And a lot is happening because I believe once Mars is in Gemini, and it is around 24 degrees, I'm going to look this up, 24 degrees of Gemini, it's going to be aspecting by its forward square, the 24 degree Virgo point. So Mars will be around 24 degrees of Gemini around October 7th and 8th. Around that time, we have got some critical things that are going to explode because transiting Mars is squaring in its forward square these positions in Vladimir Putin's chart. And even when we look at Xi Jinping's chart, he has Saturn, Neptune conjunct at 27 Virgo. So it's within a 3-degree range as well. The USA, of course, is their Saturn, but Iran has Pluto at 24 degrees. China has K2 at 23 degrees. This is critical. And Benjamin Netanyahu has his K2 at 23 degrees of Virgo. All of these countries are tied in together. This is crucial. Okay, so that's one point that represents major issues with the United States, with their Saturn in the 10th house aspecting this. So, as I said, in December 7th, Mars is going to station and turn retrograde. So the whole area of the zodiac where Mars is going back and forth is Gemini and Cancer. And so if you'll note in the United States chart, there are 4 planets in Gemini. And so the problems are going to hit the US as soon as Mars is 0 degrees of Gemini. And that will be around August 26th, and it will be in Gemini all the way till October the 20th. October 20th, that Mars will be crossing over all 4 planets in the United States chart in Gemini. And let me just say this, it's in the 7th house, and the 7th house is known to be opponents. Mars in the 7th house of the US chart, crossing over those planets, the opponents are attacking. But then Mars will go into Cancer, and as I said, it will be around October 20th. October surprise. Remember, it's going to be there in eclipses to make matters worse in October. And then it's going to go into Cancer, where it will go all the way to this 10 to 12 degrees of Cancer, 10, 11, 12 degrees of Cancer, where it's standing still. This will be around December 7th. Then it's going to start going backwards. And it's going to travel backwards in Cancer. And by the way, in the United States chart, the entire time that Mars is transiting in Cancer, in October that it's slowing down to go retrograde. And as I said, October 20th through all the way, it will be in Cancer, believe it or not, till January 21st. While it's in Cancer, it is in the 8th house of the United States. The 8th house is the house of corruption, big money. So we are looking at a huge crisis with the stock market, with not just the stock market, that's secondary to all the businesses and everything that are going to go down with this crisis, because we're in a serious crisis and attacks and things going on. Let me just tell you something. Here's what I believe will happen. And I believe that looking at the horoscopes of Donald Trump, yes, he will win the presidency on November 5th. But before Inauguration Day, they're going to take it away from him. They're going to say he's a criminal, he's whatever whatever they can do to take him out of office. But when Mars turns retrograde by December 7th, there's going to be a civil war where people are fighting in the streets over this. Yes. But then by January, we will see who is going to be put into office. And this is going to be crucial because whoever is in office is in dire danger. Let me put it that way. Okay? So this is what I see up until this point. But then by about February 23rd, 24th, Mars will station to turn direct. It will be in Gemini again at 22 degrees. It will station on the Sun in the United States chart. Let's look at the United States chart. The Sun sits at 22 degrees. That's where Mars stations to turn direct. When a planet stations, it means it goes from retrograde, or it goes from direct to retrograde, as it will December 7th, and it will go from retrograde to direct, as it will February 23rd, at 22 degrees of Gemini. This is an attack on the president. The president in a country's chart is the Sun. Okay, I haven't finished with anything yet, but I'm getting there. So what I want you to notice is that while Mars is in Cancer, and once again, let me remind you, it's going to be in Cancer from October. This is October 20th through all the way till January. Hold on a second. It will be, it'll be in Cancer all the way till January 21st, 22nd. While it's in Cancer, everything is going to go haywire with the 8th house of the United States. And that can mean major death, corruption being uncovered, explosive events that destroy a nation. And meanwhile, we even have Pluto in the 2nd house of the United States transiting. It is a Pluto return. Pluto takes about 245 years to go through all 12 signs, and it's returned because that's about the age, give or take a year, of the United States right now. And Pluto, as I said before, deals with nuclear energy, extremes, major transformations. Everything is going to be uncovered. All the corruption, all the crimes, all the stuff going on in our government. But not only that, around the world, but the United States is going to be hit the hardest. Why? Because it's a Pluto return. And Mars is turning retrograde in Cancer in the 8th house, close to the United States, Mercury and Rahu. Wow, is it going to be a major uncovering. I think it's about time that all of the corruption is uncovered. And that's what's going to happen. And I think all these events around Trump getting in, being kicked out, He's going to spill the beans on so much stuff. They're going to spill the beans. I mean, it's going to be a massive uncovering. And amongst all of that, there's violence and war breaking out everywhere. Is this insane? Okay, let me go over a few more things about these countries. Because remember where I said Mars is going to station around 10 to 12 degrees of Cancer. Let's start with the chart for Israel. Look where the moon is in Israel's chart, 11 degrees of Cancer. That is the most sensitive point in a chart, the moon. Wow. And if you can take this time that I was given, it's in the 10th house. Leaders, extremes, endings, blow-ups to the government, the country. Unbelievable what I'm seeing. Now, going back to, let's look at some other charts, looking just at what we see from the Rahu Ketu. Let's go to China's chart. Let's put up China. So looking at China's chart, look where its moon sits. 10 degrees of Capricorn. Remember, an opposition is the same as a conjunction. They are in full-bodied aspect. They are giving their aspect and glance to each other, their drishti. So that is Mars opposing the moon here, the most sensitive planet in a chart. And then we look at Xi Jinping. Look at his moon and his K2. They sit at 10 and 11 degrees of Cancer. This is total involvement. This can even bring, and I was even looking at Taiwan's chart, which is tied in with all of this. And then let's go to, we have some others, and I noticed even political leaders. So China's tied in by their leaders chart, their country's chart, and we have Israel, and I know we have some other ones I looked at. Russia. Look at Russia. Russia has its moon at 9 degrees of Capricorn conjunct Rahu at 14. So 14 degrees is still within a 3-degree range of the 12-degree station. So all these countries are tied in. So what do I see happening? Well, the truth is coming out finally. If you were wondering, I've been talking about it for so long. It's been in drips and dribbles, but it needs to come out. There needs to be a clearing of all the unjust, corrupt things that governments around the world have been up to. And now we're going to see it. Whether you want to see it or not, it's going to be there. Most people probably will have a hard time believing what they're seeing. All of us will, because like I've always said, it started a long time ago, the corruption and what's been going on. As I always say, look what happened to President Kennedy. That was part of the government. Yes, I know they said that Lee Harvey Oswald did it. Why was he killed immediately? Why was the guy that killed him and died immediately? And anyone that knew anything disappeared. Why? Because he was a lone gunman? I don't think so. There's more to it. As a matter of fact, it's been pretty well documented the CIA was involved in it, and you better believe LBJ knew. As a matter of fact, that day LBJ switched really fast, did a switcheroo with the governor of Texas, who was in the car with Kennedy and got shot too. There's more to this. So my point is, this corruption in the government was never exposed. They got away with it, but they're not going to get away with it anymore. Everything's coming up, and it's going to happen. And watch how from now things evolve and happen that you won't even believe, with Mars coming across the 0 degree of Gemini, which is the end of August. Then in October, the October surprise, when Mars comes to that position I mentioned before, I forgot, somewhere around mid-October, mentioned it earlier, looked it up. Then what I'm seeing is Trump gets elected, all hell breaks loose, and they take it away from him. And then we've got people angry in the streets. Don't forget, we have half the nation that's liberal, the other half that's conservative. They're going to clash because none of this is what anyone wants, what's going on. And then by December 7th, we've got this incredible fight in the country going on, and I can't even decipher who's going to be running the country. I'm going to have to study the charts, but like I said, another chart I didn't bring up to you was Gavin Newsom's. Remember when I was pointing out the degree of Saturn in the United States chart at 24 degrees of Virgo, and I showed you all the other charts? I didn't mention to you that Gavin Newsom's sun sits at 24 degrees of Virgo, as well as J.D. Vance, the vice president with Trump. His moon sits at 25 degrees of Virgo. All of this comes together. All of these people are battling it out. And by 2025, it looks like there's going to be something very dangerous happen to who is in office. And I keep getting, it's really between February through May, when Mars stations at 22 degrees of Gemini. Then the sun in the United States chart, which represents the leaders. And then, as I've told you many, many times before, then we have Saturn and Rahu coming together in Pisces. This will be March 29th through May 29th. And the last time it was there, we had 2 major assassinations in this country, which was Martin Luther King Jr. and Robert Kennedy. Rahu, Saturn, in Pisces. That was the last time they were there together. And here we go again. Here we go again. But this time, we get the truth. Before, it was all hidden by the government. You know, Secret Service, all of that. They're not who they pretend to be. And maybe I shouldn't even say this because I could get in trouble. But I'll just continue on. That we're going to see a lot of insane, crazy events. It's in 1968 all over again. That's what I'll leave it at. So thank you for watching. If you would like more information on me, if you would like a reading, if you would like to sign up for my newsletter, go to galacticcenter.org. And then again, if you would like to sign up for my Galactic Planner, sign up, get a free month. We're not going to be continuing the free month, so you better get on it soon if you want to try it out and see if you like it. Go to galacticplanner.com, and if you want to study with me, figure out how I know all this and be able to do this for yourself, your friends, your family, as a business. Learn astrology. It's coming up in the world now. Become my student. Go to University of Vedic Astrology.com. Thank you.